don't worry if I'm going too fast or we don't have enough time. I don't know if it's possible, Chantel, are we able to just sort of send some notes round and things like that for people afterwards?
Yeah. So I'll have everyone's email addresses so we can send notes round.
Cool, that's great. Yeah, that's what I thought, because again, we don't really have an awful lot of time today. So I did want to just make sure that we could just send things round afterwards.
I just want to say one thing, Jamie. Sorry, I just completely forgot to say at the beginning. I will be recording the session just for Jamie's own, records, and perhaps put onto our YouTube channel. So if you don't feel comfortable with recording, please turn off your camera. But if you do, you shouldn't be main screen. It should be Jamie anyway. So
cool.
A little disclaimer.
Awesome. That's great.
Oh, and also please feel free to ask any questions. You can just unmute yourself, or you can pop it in the chat and I'll read it out for you if you're busy creating a masterpiece.
Okay, so birds are quite a triangular species. It's really hard to tell I've got several screens open, so I do apologize if I'm a bit all over the place. And I will also note this is my first ever workshop, so please bear with me for any technical hitches and problems, etc. I am trying my best. So birds sort of have quite a triangular, or actually I'd say it was more of a teardrop shape to their bodies. So it's always a little bit fatter around the chest, and then it comes down into quite a nice perfect point when it reaches the tail. So just going under there, and now I'm just about to start on the tail. And tails as well sort of start wider at the top and then come down into quite a nice angular point. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the beak here. Just give a little bit of shading. Like I say, I'm just going to draw in the markings just to make it a little bit easier for when we come to start painting. And the thing is, again, you don't have to do this with watercolor. You can do it with coloring pencils, acrylics, any, chalks, anything you like. Okay. So now for the wing. So just above the woodpecker's shoulder, and I know that's probably not the correct taxonomical term. It's probably called something else in birds, but at the top of the wing, you can see it's quite feathery. So I'm just adding in that detail there. Again, sort of nice straight lines coming down from the wing. And very briefly, now bird wings are not really, for someone who likes drawing birds, they're not always my forte. But wings are very complex parts of birds. They will have different sort of alignments and patterns in the feathers. And if I had more time, I could go over it in greater detail. But again, sadly, for the purposes of today, I think it might just be easier just to show you the basics. So what I do is just sort of draw some very simple lines along the wing, just to get that rough shape in there. And again, it's sort of like the wing is sort of, again with the bird, it's quite like a nice teardrop shape. So you'll have some, and then it's got a few final feathers at the bottom there. I'm going to round that off. Okay, so again, markings, they've got the red spot on the back of the head, which I will mark as red in a moment. Got a nice grey sort of triangular patch on the chest. Okay, so there's quite a large area of black here. And again, just for the purposes of this, I'm just going to shade that in, just because that makes it a little bit easier to see what we're going to be doing when it comes to applying watercolor. So the log, don't worry about the log at the moment. That's a whole other workshop, I think, learning how to draw trees and woods and etc. but you'll notice the bird's position of the feet. So birds' feet are quite funky, I think. And one thing that I really find helps distinguish them is just giving them, they've got really long claws. So just sort of making that really defined really helps there. And that kind of disappears in there. Okay, so lastly, I will draw in the eye. Now, again, when I first started, it's very easy just to draw a perfect circle because it looks like a perfect circle. But if you really, really look closely, it's quite boxy. So you want to just have quite a flat line at the top and then bring it down into quite a nice box. The bottom is quite curved in there. Just notice where there's a reflection in the eye, you just sort of partially shade it in. And I'll bring that out to a more defined point in a moment. Okay. Again, please don't worry. I do apologize if I am going too fast. And feel free to ask any questions. Like I say, I will be sending notes around at the end because I did do a small drawing yesterday with just some tips there. Okay. So that is the rough outline done. Does anybody at this stage have any questions? Anything that they would like to just confirm or ask? If you do, you're welcome just to switch on the microphone. I'm happy to answer however I can. So now, bear with me while I just grab a few different pens that I'm going to use. So these fine liners are actually really cheap to buy off Amazon. I think you get 6 or 7 for about, I think they're about £5. And they're really good. They've lasted me for years and years. So it's really, I would always try, I know it's good to support obviously local independent businesses and art shops. I have quite a lovely art shop in where I live. But to start off with, you know, you don't need to spend a small fortune on watercolors and artwork and art materials. So yeah, like I say, you can get a pack of 8 of these, 7 or 8, and they're only probably about yeah, £5. So I'm going to start off with a size, I think I might start off with a size 2.
Jamey, you've got a lovely comment from Lily here saying your work is beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Hope you continue giving workshops too.
Oh, thank you. That's really lovely, especially for my first workshop. I tell you, I was very, very nervous before starting it because, like I say, I've never really had to think so much about my process before. I just tend to draw, and it kind of comes naturally. So I've really had to break down what I'm doing. So again, I do apologize if I go a little bit fast, but like I say, I will be sort of sending around clips and things. Okay, so size 2. Bring up that picture again. So this is where it comes into looking at the detail. When I draw birds, it's really important to notice the way the feathers flow on the body. They'll be usually quite smooth and they'll be angular and quite, I'm trying to find the right word. They won't just, you will never just get sort of straight lines. They'll sort of be nice and soft lines, soft curves. So again, I'm going to just start at the beak. Very gently. Okay. Try and when you first start off with pen, start quite lightly because obviously it's quite hard to, I mean, there are ways that you can correct mistakes, which I'll go into in a bit, because I think I make a mistake every time I draw something. But there are ways to sort of make those corrections. So the bottom bill always has a slight bit of shading to it. So you want to try and just emphasize that shading along the bottom. The top bill is usually a lot lighter. There'll be a lot more sort of reflections coming there. bringing that down across their head. And then there's quite like a nice thin line along the top bill. You'll see like just a little bit darker, which I think, again, I'm going to say nostril, but it's probably not the correct term, so I do apologize. But you just kind of want to make small, start off quite thick, bring it out to a nice thin line underneath. So have sort of some nice wispy little bits of feathers here under the chin.
Jamey, you've been asked by Marina, what size of pen do you use and what company?
Oh, so this size, the size that I'm using right now just to do some more outline, it's called, well, it's size 2, and it's called Graphic with a K. And I bought those off Amazon. So again, they were really quite cheap, and they've lasted me for years and years and years. So yeah, and they come in all sorts of different sizes. So in a bit, I'll move down to probably a number 1, and just for some more finite details.
Are they waterproof?
They are, yes, which is very, very important. Very quickly, you'll want to use non-soluble pens. So anything, and usually they will say that somewhere in the product description or on the packaging, it will say if they're soluble or not. And if they're soluble, avoid like the plague. Because I have accidentally used, I'm trying to find one. I usually have loads of them, but I have accidentally used water soluble pens on a watercolor, went to apply the actual colouring, and it was just a disaster.
I take it's a bit of trial and error, especially when you're self-taught.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was, I've always sort of had good inspiration around me, and some, along the way there have been people sort of been able to help with just, teaching me some basic things. Okay, just along the head. So you don't have to use pens. I do, because I, without sounding too pretentious, it is just part of my style and my sort of expression as an artist. If you do have a look at my Instagram, all my work will sort of have this unique sort of style in terms of using pen and ink. I do mainly use Indian ink and like one of these sorts of pens usually when I'm working, but I didn't do this today because it's a bit of a faff. So yeah, I just thought basic pens might be a good start. Okay, so just bringing out the detail in these feathers now. What I'm going to do is just rub that out just a little bit. Drop my pen.
Jamey, you've got another question from Hannah this time. Do you ever apply the watercolor and then add the pen detail afterwards?
Yes, so usually that is what I do. But because I kind of wanted to sort of focus a little bit on the drawing side of this first, I applied the watercolor. I applied the pen work first, just to make it a little bit easier for you guys. Okay, I'm going to go on to something a little bit stronger under the wing. Okay, so again, we're here with feathers work, and I will add more detail to this in a moment.
And Julie Corbin says you're doing great, Jamey.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so when you get to edges of feathers, try and just sort of shade in where the old feathers sort of finish, or the previous feathers finish, and the new feather starts. So just sort of where you can see I've sort of made that little triangle there. And it just helps to add a bit of depth to the wing, really. And now the ones at the end, usually give those a nice flick. And I will say at this point, you know, the more you relax your hand, because it's very easy, especially when you're trying really hard to sort of get something right the first time, it's really easy to tense up. But the more you kind of relax your hand into it, the sort of the smoother the lines are. Okay, just going to shade in this eye. Okay, do the feet as well. Okay. So for the time, I've got the tail. Okay. So for the time being, I am just going to leave that there for a moment before we can just start adding some colour. I'm just going to rub out some of these excess sort of start off drawing lines just to sort of make it a little bit clear of where I'm going to be drawing today. Okay. So now on to the actual painting side of things. So brushes, again, I think I got these for about 10 off Amazon, and I got about 11 or 12 brushes. And they are very, very sort of, they come in all different sorts of sizes. So that's really, really handy. The ones that I'm going to be using today, I've got a size 8. And I will also use, I'll use that one. And a size 4.
Ellie, have you got any white acrylic?
Pardon, sorry?
Oh, sorry. Oh, my microphone's on. I apologise.
Oh, that's okay.
And where's the white?
My partner came in and he was like, "Can I hoover?" And I was like, "Don't you dare hoover."
I'm muting now. Sorry.
That's all right. Don't worry at all. Okay, so fresh pot of water. This is clean. It does not look clean, but the glass is not clean. So yeah, just ignore me there. So very briefly, I'm just going to hover my set of paints over. So these I got, I think, from an art shop somewhere. They're Japanese watercolors. And I've had them for, gosh, about 5 years now. And they are still going really, really strong. And again, you kind of want to sort of, invest in it in a half decent set. I know they are, I can't pronounce the name now. Dalla Rowley. They have quite nice sort of starter sets of watercolors, so you can get them all in different sizes. What I like to do to start off with is just test out some colors against the actual picture, the reference picture. So a good thing to remember about colors is that white is never just white. There are always different sort of shades and tones in that as well. And yeah, so obviously the three main colors on the woodpecker, you'll have black, red and white, but you can see where like the chest is of it, it's almost quite a gray kind of brownie, it's got quite a nice brownie tinge to it. So when we sort of start to apply watercolors, I'll sort of show you how to add a bit of shading in there as well. Again with black, you know, there are many paintings where I've sort of drawn Labradors and it's just one massive blob of black ink. Again, I try to add like blues and some purples in there as well, just to add a bit of depth and variety. So with the red, a good way to sort of suss out colors on different subjects or pictures, if you really, and this is going to look very, very strange, but if you really, really squint at the picture, it's much easier to see the light and the different colors that come through, which sounds really like ridiculous and silly and like it just wouldn't work at all. But if you really, really squint, so I'm looking at the bottom of the woodpecker on the picture, it's got quite a really nice dark brown to sort of dark red, and then it sort of comes a bit lighter where it just meets the top of the wing. So with reds, this is quite an orangey red. Okay, so this bit of paper I'm just going to use just to sort of demonstrate a bit of color palette work and mixing. No, that's too pink.
Got quite a few people who've got the same set as you. Am I unmuted? Yes, I am.
Pardon?
We've got quite a few people who've got the same colour, the watercolour set. So Charlotte Webb and Rachel says, I have the same set, got them as a present last year, have been too intimidated to use them until now.
Awesome, that's brilliant.
Thanks for popping that link in the chat, Charlotte, to the watercolours. If anyone wants to check those out, there's a link.
Yeah, that's great. So the one that I'm going to be using for the main woodpecker is going to be number 43, which is this red here. It's quite a bold red. And then I think what I'm going to do is just mix that with a bit of brown so that it doesn't come off quite so bright. But to start with anyway, we're just going to be doing some very light washes over the top. So red. I'm going to start with the quite obvious patch of red at the base of the woodpecker. At this stage, I'm going to really, really dilute it down with water, because what you don't want to do is sort of splodge it on and then it kind of becomes too heavy. Like I say, so you can reverse some mistakes on watercolor. A good way to do that is through white acrylic. So you can just sort of, I usually tend to do it right at the end when I've finished, mix up a little bit of white acrylic just to take with them with whatever color you need, just to sort of cover any mistakes or patches. But at this stage, I'm really, really light. Another thing I have on my desk is a cloth, because sometimes you can add too much water and then it sort of bleeds. So a cloth just really helps just to take a little bit of the excess water off the top. If it does bleed, this is something my art teacher taught me, my really scary art teacher in middle school. If it does bleed, so if you splodge a whole load of water on there and you can see there's like quite a big puddle, what you can do is really get a dry brush, like bone dry, and just very gently roll it over the top, and then you see it just lifts. It lifts the color off, so it's not quite so dark. And then you can sort of paint over the top of it. So back to the actual woodpecker. So I've done a nice base color there. I'm going to do the red spot on the back of his head. And then there's a little tiny little fleck of red on his chest. I think another thing to say is that it's really important to make it your own. So don't worry if it doesn't look 100% like the picture. It really doesn't matter. You know, again, it adds a sense of uniqueness to what you're drawing. So yeah, it's important not to get too precise with things. That's a purple. So now for black. So like I say, I like to sort of mix black with a few different colors so that it's not just too dark and too heavy. And I think rather than doing purple this time, I might do blue. And you can see it's almost like a nice gray color. And because at this stage we're going really, really light, you don't want anything too dark and heavy. So, and also the black feathers on the top of his head and at the back of his wing are quite shiny. So it's quite nice to just have something light. And then we can go back and add the detail on. It's got quite a nice grey beak. Sometimes with birds, I always find that the tip of the beak is quite dark and then it gets gradually a little bit lighter. Okay. So he's got a nice black sort of, I'm going to say moustache. And again, not the term that's used in the birding world, but for this, I don't really care. And then sort of really nice light. Paper is also another one of these things which is good to, you can get sort of nice sets of watercolor paper, come in packs of 10 or 20. Trying to do it on just regular printing paper can be really, really hard. Because it just, that's why I've sort of taped down the sides, because the paper will pucker and bend as the watercolor dries. So yeah, it gets some good grainy watercolor paper. That really helps. Okay, so the bottom of the wing, he's got a really nice black and white stripy pattern. Again, at this stage, I'm really not focusing too much on what the actual picture looks like. I'm just, you know, having a quick look, roughly guessing, you know, how I can translate that in my own way into the painting. Tips of the wings. Okay, and the tail feathers as well. Comes quite nicely. Okay, so now for his chest. So he's got quite a browny kind of coloured chest. And again, I'm really going to dilute this down. So what you want to do, just add very sort of light dabs to start with. Again, light and sort of tone and everything, that would be a whole separate watercolor tutorial. So I am sort of having to bypass a little bit here, but it is important just to add that shading, just so that it comes out a little bit clearer. He's got little patches of sort of brown under his eyes, and where that comes down, that's quite nice. Okay. For the feet, I think I'm going to use brown. Birds' feet can be quite pinky sometimes, so I might just add a little. Oh, that's too pink. Okay, we'll go over that with some brown. And I will come back to that later to make it better. Okay. So that's sort of the very light kind of base coat, if you like, to start with. So now I'm going to mix a darker sort of black colour to really add the detail. And this is kind of where watercolour comes into its own, really. I'll add just a little bit of blue again, just to give it a nice tone, really. That's purple. There. Okay, dilute that down with a brush. Okay, so again, a really good thing to do is just to squint very, very sort of lightly at the painting to really sort of get a feel for where the lighter and the darker parts of the woodpecker are in terms of the, so I'm going to focus on black. So he's got quite a really nice dark bit there, which kind of comes out to the front. And again, it's really good to sort of notice the way that the feathers are moving across the back, across the top of the bird's head. I'm gonna leave just a few sort of blank patches, if you like, just at the top there, just to kind of show a little bit of shading and reflection from his lovely feathers. Okay, and here again, it's quite dark at this part at the front. So a little bit more water. And then at the bottom of his back here, it's darker. You're just going to drag it upwards to blend it in along the back. Okay. Again, you know, don't be afraid to go a bit nuts at this stage if you want to. Okay. Paint his moustache, which isn't a moustache.
Jamie, you've got a comment from Ellen. Really enjoying this. Thank you for sharing your process.
Oh, that's lovely. That's no trouble, Ellen. Thank you very much for coming.
So great to see everyone heads down, busy.
I know if I go stone silent, I do apologize. Like,
oh no, I feel bad for even talking. I feel like I'm ruining the process. I feel like I should just.
That's okay. That's okay. You drawing as well, Chantal?
I am, yeah, but I haven't got any watercolor. So mine looks like the, you know, that when you're doing an exercise video and they're like, you know, if you want to do an easier version, you can have a look at mine, and mine's like the primary school version with some felt tips.
Okay. Sure, it's lovely. Anyway, I'm really excited to all turn out.
Definitely love if people want to share, if people want to, I don't know, take a picture and send it to us by email or on Twitter. If you want to send them to Jamie, please do. We'd love to see.
Great. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm really going to sort of lay on thick a little bit more with black. So it is just layers after layers adding detail as you go.
Got a comment, I hope I say your name correctly, Ira. They said, I'm also really enjoying listening and watching. I've started doing creative things during lockdown, which has been so wonderful to have a chance to learn new things.
Yes. Do you know what, honestly, I think painting has really got me through lockdown, to be honest. You know, I try to spend as much time as I do outdoors as I do inside drawing, because I think that's part of a good way to sort of learn about the subjects that you are drawing, and try and recreate and capture the movements of the birds and put that on paper. But that's really lovely to hear.
And why have you chosen wildlife to draw, Jamey? Has it always been wildlife?
Yeah, I did a degree in wildlife management and conservation, and I think that was just the start of, you know, my interest in wildlife. And I just quite liked, and I like drawing anyway. My dad was very, very big into art, and so is my brother, although his style is very, very different. He does like graphic novels and comic books and things like that, so it's very quite different. But yeah, we're quite a creative family, and animals are just lovely to draw. Like, people, no, like, I can't draw hands. I think someone would be really offended if if I if I volunteered to draw them. It just wouldn't come out the way that would make them feel very flattered. So yeah, just just sort of I really liked birds. I really liked bigger mammals like wolves and bears, and you know, I had all these places that I really wanted to go and still really want to go, and just being able to draw them was a nice way to connect with some of these species that were from different countries. But then I started at BTO, and there's quite a lot of bird artists and ornithology artists out there. So I've just mixed a bit of red and brown. I'm just going to do the underside of the woodpecker now. Okay. The side of his wing. Okay. Okay, so again, with quite a small brush, just bringing out some of the detail in his feathers at the front. Because again, white isn't just white, it's, if you stare at the clouds, this is always a good thing that I learned. You know, you'll have yellows and blues and purples and all sorts of different colours that come out, not just white. So just adding in a little bit of, I know it can be really, really hard to see sometimes, especially if you're working from photographs, which is why it's always quite good to sort of watch the birds themselves. So just applied a small bit of grey to this white part of his wing, I'm going to clean my brush so it still has a little bit of water on it, but not completely dry. And just like shade, if you like, sort of just tone it a little bit. And then keep adding to that area. Again, under his chin. It's got a little bit of brown. Just going to go in with a little bit more detail around the eyes. Okay. So I'm going to leave that to dry and just focus on his feet for a little bit. So he's got quite, I don't even know what colour that is. That's like a grey kind of yellowy feet. But it doesn't matter too much if you don't get the exact kind of colouring on some of these, on some of this right. You know, there's an amazing artist out there called Robert Macfarlane, not Robert Macfarlane, Robert Fuller, and he does amazing wildlife art, but it's so like, he'd be able to draw this picture like as it is, like, you know, almost like it was a photograph itself. Whereas I guess mine's more of like an impressionist kind of point of view. So it's really, it doesn't matter if things like the colors don't entirely match up or it's not exactly right. You know, just enjoy it for what it is. Okay. So again, I'm just going to apply a little bit of like sort of a darker color, which might look a bit striking at first. But then I'm just going to clean the brush, leave a bit of water on, and just blend it out. Okay, I'm also just going to add, so I've really darkened down this red color that I'm going to use. When you're darkening colors, it's good to, rather than use black, because black is quite a harsh color on its own. So maybe try and darken it down with brown, or green works quite well with red, believe it or not. Just until it becomes a little bit more toned, because black sometimes can just completely take over what you're trying to paint, and then it can become quite hard. Okay, so now I'm going to get a really fine liner. This is a 0.05. There we go. So now obviously I haven't waited until this is fully dry, but you see what I mean, like what Hannah asked earlier, kind of, sometimes I'll do the watercolor first and then I'll draw on top. Sometimes I'll draw and then I will do the watercolor. Most of the time, thinking about it, I'll probably just do both, and sort of interchange, and, you know, sort of mix. So again, you don't have to do this, but it's just the way that I draw. So now for me, this is my favorite bit, is sort of adding in the details. So any sort of like finite lines that you can see. So if I just completely move that out, no, I haven't. So any fine lines that you can see that you want to sort of highlight and bring in sort of depth and sort of toning to the woodpecker's sort of face. So I'm going to focus on his face and just bring out some of the smaller lines under his eye and the white feathers here. Okay. And I'm just going to drag this across and back just to add another layer of kind of like tone. Really like drawing his eye, make it stand out a little bit more. Some little bits of fluff around the corners of his eye. And again, be quite light and relaxed when you hold the pen in your hand so that it's not too rigid and quite smooth. And bring out the detail in his face. I might just gonna cross hatch that under there. Just testing how dry that is. So again, I'm just going to do just a tiny bit of cross hatching on his chest just to sort of bring out the underside of his belly. And bring out some of those nice feathers quite nicely. Okay, now for this part, I'm going to use a slightly thicker pen. I'm going to go back to my good old number 2. Again, it is preferable to wait until it dries, but that can take anywhere between half an hour and a couple of hours, depending on how much you've saturated the paper. I'm going to switch to a number 1, that's better. And just this for me, I like line drawing and bringing out the detail myself. A lot of watercolor artists just paint with solely watercolors, which is fantastic. I really admire that. But personally, for me, I just quite like to bring out some of the. It just helps for me to define some of the shapes and the movements in the bird's feathers. You see how the wings sort of curved. So I'm just trying to add those curves in. And make it a little bit more detailed. Again, I'm just going to. Okay. So now the feathers, I might even go, those in like the wing feathers rather. I might even go an even slightly thicker type of pen and just bring out some of the definition there and the wing tips and tips of the lovely feathers. Like I say, that is, bird feathers are really quite complicated. Primary and tertiary feathers, and it's quite detailed. But what I can do is in the notes that I'll send round, I'll probably just send you a small example of when I've drawn feathers before, and then you can have a look. Again, I'm not worrying about the log. That might be another session. I'm just adding a little bit of shading around the feet, just to bring out his digits a little bit more. And his body is slightly overlapped there. Again, you will note that it's not exactly identical to the picture. There will be noticeable differences. Okay, I'm just going to finally just go under his tummy again. Got some really nice fluffy red feathers under here. I'll just bring out. Okay. And I'll just, again, I think this just helps to add to the tone and the shading, just giving it a little bit where it's a little bit shiny on the back of his back. Okay. One great spotted woodpecker.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I've just seen Leslie giving a round of applause. I'm going to join. I'm going to join that. Oh my goodness, that looks awesome.
Yeah, it's I mean, yeah, I'll thank you. I'll show you I'll scan it and share it around so you can have a little bit look more at the details. Unfortunately, my camera isn't the best camera in the world, so there will be it might be a little bit harder to kind of just see some of the details there. So I do, in fact, I'll try and. Okay, that's gone all wrong. Okay.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah, we're getting a zoom in here.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Hannah said you did a great job of breaking it down. And then Marina has asked, what brushes did you use?
Oh, so brushes. Yay, that's
That's
better.
Again, yeah.
Yeah. Brushes. Just sit down. I have a whole wad of brushes that I sort of pick up from art shops and all sorts of things. So these ones are called Art Master. Again, I think I don't like supporting Amazon because I feel like it takes away from all these like lovely little independent art businesses that are really struggling. So I don't primarily just get all my stuff from there. So yeah, these ones are called Art Master. They come in loads of different sizes and they're brilliant for just kind of you know, sort of just getting a bit of variety. They're all, yeah, so they are made of, I can't remember. I'm really sorry, I can't remember. But they're really easy to work with. And they give you like really sort of nice lines. They hold a really nice amount of water. They're not animal hair, that's all I know. Animal hair it's quite saturating and it can hold way too much water and it completely just drowns the paper before you've even really got started. So I want to say polyester, but that's really not the word. But yeah, you sort of want to find you know, sort of a really good kind of set of brushes with artificial hair, especially just to start out with there. It's yeah, it's really quite good to work with there. I also, a good tip, if you are like myself, really prone to making mistakes, is to get a white gel pen. This one is it's called Hybrid Gel Grip. I think I have a better one in here though somewhere. But yeah, basically, they're really good for just adding sort of fine lines. In fact, whilst I'm here, I might even just, I really like the little glint in his eye, so I'm going to make that just a little bit whiter there, just on the top. And it's really good to sort of just correct any outline mistakes or you know, anything like that, really. Trying to think what else. But yeah, that's brushes and pens and things. So.
Thank you so much, Jamey. I think everyone's really enjoyed it. It has some really lovely comments saying, oh, where was this lovely comment? That Julie Corbin really enjoyed this and loved painting with everyone instead of being alone. It feels like a real art session in person.
Oh, lovely.
And yeah, everyone just seems to have really, really lovely comments. People have still got their heads down, so people are still painting, still going. I'm loving this dedication to the cause. And I think this has been such a lovely Sunday afternoon. Oh, Rachel's holding hers up there. Let's go look. I'm going to spotlight it. If anyone wants to hold theirs up, I'm going to spotlight. Wow, my gosh. And that's the first time you've used your watercolors.
That's so good. That's so good. Hang on, I'm trying to widen my screen. I can't. Panic. Oh, I can't. I'm so sorry, Rachel.
You might be able to pull it across. I'm sort of skipping to who's ever.
What am I doing?
That was Rachel's. Here we go. Let's go to Kerry's. Okay, spotlight. Here we go. Oh my goodness. We've got double here. They look amazing. We're on Kerry's at the moment. They look amazing.
Gosh. Hang on, I'm widening the screen.
Widen that screen.
Oh my gosh, they're so good. They are so good.
Let's go to, oh my goodness, now I'm having a faff. How do we go? Gallery. Louise is holding hers up. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. We've got real artists in this.
These are amazing.
This is incredible from just an hour.
Oh, that's so good.
I really got, oh my goodness. Okay, if you guys can take a picture of these and send them to @GreatNorthwood on Twitter or to our email, which you'll get an email afterwards with our email address, because we would love to somehow exhibit these, because this is just too special. Daphne, I'm coming over to yours. Sorry if we don't get to go to everyone's. We are on tight time, but definitely put these in. Michelle, if we come to yours, let's have a look. Oh, Michelle and Cara, wow. Even the logs finished in those ones. That's
I know. Like I feel like such a failure.
Don't. You've had a lot to do. You've been speaking and drawing. Julie's, I'm coming over, and painting. So I think you've done more than enough, Jamey. Wow.
They all look so good. That is really, really impressive.
I think Tamsin, if I'm correct, Tamsin, who's just written in the chat, is from Malta, I think. That's what I'm getting from what you've written there. So that's incredible. We're across the seas. Have you just unmuted, Tamsin? Feel free to say hello.
Hello. Yep, I'm in Malta at the moment. And I work for a nature park, so I'm going to try, sorry, the lighting is not very good, but I want to try and do something similar for kids that are our followers at the nature park. So awesome. It's very inspiring to watch you do it, Jamey. Thank you.
Cool, that's no trouble at all. This is amazing. We're gonna have some serious competition next year.
This has been absolutely incredible. I'm sorry if I didn't get to spotlight everyone, but please find a way to send them to us or send them to Jamey.
Yeah.
There's been some really good tips in the chat. So if anyone doesn't know, you can actually go into the chat and by where it says file, you can click the 3 dots and save the chat. So if there's any tips, links in there, you can save the chat and it will download to, I think, your Zoom file or something like that. I've also been recording the session, so we'll try and get that sent round to you guys as well.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to pop some links in the chat there. So the first one is to Jamey's website and also where you can see more of her art and also purchase. You've got her Instagram and Twitter there, so please give her a follow. And if you've got any follow-up questions, I'm not going to say on her behalf, please DM her, message her.
Yeah.
And then we've got one more event this afternoon, which is live baking. So if you fancy baking as well, please tune into that. I've popped the link. And also we've got a survey going round for after the event. So please fill that in. That should come to your email address. And if you want to go a step further and become a member of London Wildlife Trust or donate, then please do, but it's not obligatory. I just want to say thank you so much, Jamey. You did a fantastic job.
No.
The first workshop, my gosh, that was incredible. You did it amazingly. So honestly, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for coming, for putting your brushes to paper. Really well done for taking some time out on your Sunday to join us.
Awesome.
I'm going to sign off now because we've got our next event, but thank you so much, Jamey. Any last words? You were incredible. Those are mine.
Thank you so much for everybody for coming. I really hope that you all enjoyed it. And yeah, if you have any questions or anything, please keep in touch. It'd be lovely to hear from you. But yeah, this has been really cool. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jamey. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely afternoon and hope to see you in the Great North Woods soon.
Yes, take care.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot.
Yes, bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Well done, everyone. Bye, Dan.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Rachel. Thank you for coming.